Thanks for joining us here today, America. I wanted to just give a shout out. Happy New Year to everyone. And thank you for joining us here on Indivisible with John Stubbins. This is the show where you put God, family, and our country first. Want to get right to it today. We're streaming across the brand to everybody from PatriotTV.live, Cloud Hub, Pill.net, etc. So real quick note, just so you know, Mike Lindell is having a sale, 50% off flash sale on My Pillow slippers that you can get right away. You can use my promo code Indivisible or call the number 1-800-716-4639. Now, I want to get straight to it today. You know that we're having issues constantly on the border, dealing with crime and everything else. And I want to get right to that today. And I want to bring on Tom Homan, former ICE director. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. We're also going to be joined now by Jaeson Jones, who's embedded down at the border. And Jaeson, I don't know how good your signal is. You may fade in and out, but I want to get right to it. The southern border is worse than ever. Jaeson, I know that you're embedded down there. I know that it's become a sieve. Tom has been talking about this forever and trying to get people to listen and put their stamp on this and say enough. And Tom, I just want to get your thoughts because, look, we're getting taxed as American citizens, whether it's our schools, our police force, we're not getting what we're paying our taxes for. And it's just ridiculous what's happening with the cartels. Jaeson and I did a big show right before Christmas on these bands that they're putting on these kids to identify them, on the special shoes that they're wearing. And this thing is getting worse by the day. What the heck is going on?
I know the Biden administration, I've said it many times, I worked for 6 presidents starting with Ronald Reagan, and I respected every president I've worked for. Didn't agree with all of them, but I respected them. And every president, Ronald Reagan up to Donald Trump, had their ideas how to secure the border, how to enforce immigration law. They all talked about it, and they all made steps toward it. Even Clinton and Barack Obama, they all wanted a secure border, and they all had different ideas how to get there. But let's be clear, no one did more to secure the border than Donald Trump, because illegal immigration was at an all-time low. It's down 83%. So Joe Biden is the first president in my lifetime that came into office and unsecured the most secure border we've ever had. What president would do that? So, we have lost, and I wrote an op-ed at foxnews.com in June of last year. I said, if Joe Biden becomes president, this is the year before the election, the year of the election, this is June of 2020. I said, if Joe Biden became president, we'd lose the border. Because the promises he made during the election, amnesty, DACA, end ICE detention, get free medical care. I'm going to end the remain in Mexico. I'm going to end the agreements with Central American countries. When you make the type promises, the whole world come. That's what's happening. And they haven't done one thing in a year now. We went from the most secure border we've ever had, and within months, had historic illegal immigration on the border. Went from the worst, we had the best just 2 months earlier. So the Biden administration had purposely torn down the border. This isn't mismanagement. This isn't incompetence. This is by design.
Yes.
At the same time, you open the border up, they decapitated ICE. ICE can't do interior enforcement. We can't enforce the border.
Yeah, I mean, ICE's hands are tied. The Border Patrol's hands are tied. Law enforcement hands are tied. Harris hasn't done anything. Biden's never been to the border. And Mayorkas does nothing. He does nothing. He's no help at all. None of these people are any help. I mean, we've got the cartels shooting people, killing people, executing people, human trafficking, child trafficking, drugs, the strain on Border Patrol, the strain on ICE, the consequences for that affect the American people, whether it be through taxation, which affects schools, our police departments, crime, it just destruction in their wake, the littering, the filth. I mean, the American people have had it, and the consequences are just insane. And Biden and Harris, I agree with you, Tom. This is totally by design by them, and they're trying to blow smoke up everybody's butts. Meanwhile, they sing this tune on television that nobody believes. It's just total nonsense. Jason, what's going on down there, man? Can you hear me, Jason?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, what's going on down there today, right now?
Yeah, it's good to be with you both. I've been down here all week long, embedded with the Texas Department of Public Safety during Operation Lone Star. And, one of the things here is to try to show and really illuminate how what's happening here at the border impacts every single American, right? Because we always kind of hear a very singular emotion as to what's happening down here. Let me just kind of give you an example as to what the cartel's tactics are doing and how things are becoming more violent, but then also really some of the latest tradecraft that's happening and how it impacts the American people. Because what happens at this border, this is the takeaway that is not coming across well, I think, in a lot of the media, is that this isn't just a Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California problem. This is a national problem. And let me give you some examples. Day before yesterday, we had Cartel de Golfo in Fronton, Texas, shooting right on the U.S.-Mexico border across from some of the most elite units of BORTAC. Literally, that evening, they were trying to save an individual who was drowning in the river, Border Patrol. They went down to the river. When they got there, they were engaged by the Cartel de Golfo yesterday. Multiple rounds fired from both sides. And you're going to see that continuation. Now, just since January 1st, Border Patrol have been fired on in that location. When they went to apprehend one female, agents took fire from Mexico, from coordinated individuals who are highly, highly trained. Cartel de Golfo is no joke. This is a very hyper-violent cartel. 10 days later, most elite unit of BORTAC was fired upon. They did not return fire, and now we've had this. That's just since January 1st, guys. Now, the tactics down here with the human trafficking, and I'm not talking about smuggling, where they've gone, really the real change here that we've seen in tactics that's impacting the American people is that from fiscal year 21, we saw a real transition from the smuggling of people into the trafficking through debt bondage. We are seeing more and more of these wristbands where the cartels are charging such extraordinary fees. In the old days, I laugh because to cross this border, which, by the way, the river's right here next to me. I'm in Rio Grande City right now. To cross that border would cost the average person $100. And the cartels didn't care who you were, what country of origin you came from. Today, we have people from well over 155 countries crossing this border where I'm at. And the cartels have learned that they can charge such extraordinary fees. If you're a Guatemalan, and we came across several this week, they're charging $12,000 US just to cross that river, but they don't have the money. So this is where they're indebted to these people. And that's what these wristbands that they wear are all about. And look, we've done back-to-back reporting trying to bring awareness to this. So if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, man, I'm sure glad I'm not in Rio Grande City or I'm not on that border, I want everyone to understand something. When you see fentanyl in your backyard, when you see and you hear about trafficking on your local news network and you never heard about that previously, you need to immediately know that that is linked to what we are seeing down here. Because when we think of our border today, you need to know that the world is coming. This is not a U.S.-Mexico problem anymore, and we got to look at it much, much differently.
Yeah, and Americans, this is the thing I've been trying to stress with the shows I've been doing with Jason, with Laura Logan. Look, the average American doesn't know what's happening, okay? We need to find a way to get the message to the American people because it's not happening in a large enough quantity for the American people to say, you know what, this is ridiculous. We're tired of this nonsense. I mean, the connections. I mean, think about the cops that are being murdered, okay? The defunding of the police. This has tentacles that stretch into cities all over America, small towns, big towns, cities, where these people are, you saw the videos of these people being transported at night by plane and distributed to cities all over America without the American people's knowledge. I wonder, I know that you have talked to Chip Roy about this down in Texas. We need to get more people involved in this. Tom, what are you hearing on your end that's happening right now as far as the way people are seeing this? Are they seeing this? Or are they out in left field? Do they realize really what's happening here?
Look, the majority of media, they're just an extensive arm of the Democratic Party, and they're covering Joe Biden. I said last year, when a couple of children died under the Trump administration, they blamed the Border Patrol, even though those children were in bad shape when they were found by the Border Patrol. You had AOC, you had Congressman Castro, and half the Democratic Party running to the border, screaming and yelling about the inhumane tactics of the Trump administration. Last year, the Trump administration, we lost 253 people on the border, died crossing the border. Under the first year of Biden, we got 557. So the deaths have doubled under Joe Biden. But where's AOC? Where's Castro? Where's the media? Where's all the media that was, But let me say this about President Trump's policy, which I helped create. We have the most secure border this country ever saw.
Yes, sir.
When illegal immigration is down 83%. When illegal immigration is down at a 40-year low, how many women aren't being raped? How many children aren't dying? How many billions of dollars the cartel's not making? How many pounds of fentanyl isn't coming into this country because we got Border Patrol back on the line where they should be? And the reporter you just talked to makes a good point. This is not a Texas problem. I've been to Rio Grande Valley 5 times this year. Every time I leave the Rio Grande Valley airport to go to Dallas, my plane is half full of illegal aliens that the U.S. government, the Biden administration, is sending to their final destination, compliments of the U.S. taxpayer, because all those airline tickets are bought by the taxpayer. And it's just not an illegal immigration problem. I don't care what you're putting on illegal immigration problem. This is a public safety crisis because Bordeaux's arrested 16,000 criminals. It's also a public health crisis because thousands of COVID cases have come across that border. And it's a public health crisis, 100,000 overdose deaths of fentanyl. It isn't a coincidence. We have a record amount of overdose deaths on fentanyl. The same year, we got historic illegal immigration. Why? Because 50% of the Border Patrol is off the line processing family units. The cartels take advantage of open parts of the border. I'll give you 2 examples. When we had 15,000 Haitians under the Del Rio Bridge a few months ago, every Border Patrol agent in Del Rio sector was pulled off the line into process. 224 miles of border unguarded for weeks. In Yuma, just a couple weeks ago, they had so many aliens coming across the border, they overwhelmed the processing center. They brought all the Border Patrol agents in to process so they can start releasing quicker. But hundreds of illegal aliens were walking across the border in Yuma, walking into the city of Yuma, and taking a taxi or a bus to get out of town. This border is open, just not the illegal immigration, but the drug flow, criminals. And I'll say this: it's a national security issue.
Absolutely,
it's almost impossible to get a plane ticket or visa.
Yeah, Tom, you bring up a great point. This is absolutely a national security issue. What is it? Over 150 countries that we've discovered that have been recognized as trying to come into the border. That's insane. That is insane.
Look, it's not only that. Let's remember, the Border Patrol has arrested 16 people on the FBI screening database. They've arrested 16. Terrorists don't want to be arrested, so apparently these 16 were morons. But there's nearly 500,000, 500,000 gotaways. And that number is based on camera traffic, sensor traffic, and drone traffic that Border Patrol couldn't respond to. 500,000 gotaways. How many of that 500,000 gotaways were carrying fentanyl? How many
exactly.
of them were MS-13 gang members? How many of them were known suspected terrorists? Because terrorists don't want to get caught. And
that's right.
You know what that number is? How many terrorists come across that border? Someday we're going to find out, and it's going to be devastating.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what Jason and I were talking about just yesterday. Look, we talk about the arrests that are made, the people that are stopped at the border that are trying to come in illegally, but people don't even think about what about all the people that aren't caught, that aren't questioned, that slip through and nobody knows about it, whether it's the drugs, whether it's terrorism, whether it's other kinds of criminals, human trafficking, child trafficking, just like we said. And here's the other thing. This really bothers me because we talked about this back in November, and that is, President Trump got all these supplies to build that wall down there, and they're just sitting there. They were baking in the sun all summer long, just sitting there. They're already paid for, okay? But Biden doesn't want to do it. He's going to spend more money to try to get out of contracts with the men that were supposed to build this than the contract itself. This guy's crazy.
Well, this comes from a president, Joe Biden, who, when he was senator, he voted for border walls. He voted for it, along with Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. I mean, Chuck Schumer, they all voted for border barriers. But because Trump believed in border barriers, all of a sudden they didn't. And you got Jen Psaki having a press conference at the White House when they stopped building the wall, saying, we stopped construction of the wall because it wasn't effective. Where the hell did you get that from? Every place they built a border barrier, every place, 100% of the time, it resulted in decreased illegal immigration, decreased illegal drug flow. The data is right on the CBP website. So how she stood up in front of the American people to say, we stopped the walk, wasn't effective, she stone cold lied.
She's a liar. Exactly, Tom. She is a liar. Jason, I want to talk a minute about the tentacles of this, because a lot of the American people, again, they're not able to connect the dots. You know, if they live in New Jersey or Michigan or, you know, Kentucky, they may not understand how this gets to them and connecting the dots. What does it mean for them? Their schools, crime in their neighborhood, hospitals, taxes, all these other little things. I want to talk about connecting the dots real quick. And by the way, look, it really pisses me off when you hear about these idiots, these Marxists who want to put up a statue of George Floyd, but they want to tear down a statue of a great American patriot like Teddy Roosevelt. It is absurd. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, one of the things I would tell you is that every state feels the impacts of the border differently based on what cartels, what alien smuggling groups are working in their area. And I'll give you some great examples. One of the biggest impacts that people in the north feel is the overdoses of fentanyl. We've had 100,000 overdoses, according to the CDC, in a 12-month period. Here's why that's significant. Where is fentanyl coming from? It's coming from two major cartels, Cartel Jalisco New Generation, known as CJ&G, which, by the way, is collaborating right here to my right with Cartel de Golfo, and you're very soon going to see a war between them. And the reason they started partnering here is because this is how they began moving their fentanyl through this part of it. Now, they also, Sinaloa is the other cartel that those two have dominated the fentanyl market when we began seeing it cross into the country in 2015. Fentanyl is a different game. I don't look at it as a drug. I look at it as a poison, because look at the level and you can see it very clearly in the data. Anybody can go to the CDC website and you can see the spike increase. It's straight up. You'll hear a lot about China. Here's the deal. The cartels are the main problem there. And the reason for that is that they're already moving to India and other countries, including Pakistan, to get chemical precursors. So they're many steps above the media and ahead of them, including our federal government and what their focus is. So if you really want to take a dent out of the problem that Americans are feeling, and again, whether it is fentanyl, whether it is human smuggling, whether it's human trafficking, all of these things, we have to stop focusing on the symptoms, and we have to start focusing on the problem, which is these cartels, because they coordinate and collaborate and specifically contract with U.S.-based gangs and other transnational groups to do their dirty work. So if you're sitting in Chicago, well, it's your local gangs that are collaborating with Sinaloa. If you're sitting in another part of the country, it's your local gangs collaborating. Anyway, so you can see where the synergy between the criminal underworld has really evolved. And one of the things that I've been...
Quick question, Jason, and I was just going to get to this in a minute, but you brought up a good point. I want to hit on it right now. What about people, these inner groups like BLM and Antifa? Are they coordinating also with the Mexican drug cartels? I mean, they just got $60 million and nobody knows where the money went, right? So, I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, where is that money? They're lining up white kids at schools and making against the wall and making them apologize to black kids, which is that's Jim Crow, by the way. That's real Jim Crow. That's real racism. But I believe that this is much more sinister with this Marxist movement. And I'm wondering, is BLM, is Antifa, obviously these other drug gangs in America, in these bigger, especially blue cities, are these other groups also teaming up with the cartels to just bring destruction in total?
No, not that I've heard of, or that we've made any links to at this point. But what I will say is that this is, we have been talking about this border issue for well over 20 plus years. We have been talking about these cartels and what has been happening for how long, as we watch them evolve into a parallel government in Mexico, completely taking over. If you were to cross right here and go across, the mayor, the city council, they all report to them. That our border has degraded into the gray zone. So let me just close with this, because I know we're short on time. I want the folks out there to know that this is absolutely fixable. Absolutely fixable. One of the problems that we have in our country is that we don't collect the data on all crimes. We're still using the broken uniform crime reporting system that catches 8-based index crimes, and we're still using what the FBI titles as the new National Incident-Based Reporting System, which is much better. But everything that we've talked about today, think about this, whether it's weapons, whether it's drug trafficking, human smuggling, drug trafficking, all of that is not captured so that the American people can see what the problem is, but also law enforcement amongst over 18,000 law enforcement agencies to see the level of impact upon transnational organizations. So I'll just close with this. First, we designate these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and we go forward after them using the tools of national power. Doesn't mean we go to war. It means we use tools of national power. Second, we fix the FBI's broken NIBR system and uniform crime reporting system so we can have real-time transparency with the American people about how transnational crime has been impacting this nation for so long. And third and final, and I'll say this, is we've got to have much better synergy between the United States government and what's left of some of the Mexican government and other agencies and countries around the world who are dealing with this cartel threat. And I promise you, I will promise everyone that's listening, what we're dealing with down here is absolutely fixable. When it comes to the immigration issue, as Tom has said, that's a fixable issue. We know what the recipe is there for success on MPP, migration protection protocols, building the border wall. We know how to drop those numbers. And if we do those things, we're going to be successful.
Yeah. And just, real quick, Jason, before I go back to Tom, I just wanted to ask you, is Chip Roy or Ted Cruz or Governor Abbott down there, what are they saying? And I know that I've heard different stories about Governor Abbott saying, he's tired of this, of not getting help from the Biden administration, that they're going to go it alone. Where are they with that? Do we have anybody on our help that we can that will work with us to get something done and put an end to this?
Yeah, sure. Listen, I've worked with Chip Roy for many years. As a matter of fact, we drafted not one but two bills to designate the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Both of those bills were dead on arrival when they got to Congress. And they were good bills, by the way, very simple, but they were dead on arrival. Second, Governor Abbott has done some great things. He's created Operation Lone Star. He's submitted $1.8 billion of Texas taxpayer dollars to be down here to create a unified command approach where local, state, federal, and Texas National Guard, who I've been embedded with all week, are collaborating in a unified command model to hold this line down here the best we can. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be very frank with you. The activation of 10,000 National Guard soldiers who I've been embedded with, over 7,000 DPS troopers, Texas Rangers, and the best of the best at the state level, it's not enough. When you fly this border at night and you see through forward-looking infrared the amount of halcones that have operational control of this river, I mean, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And as the night hits and you see raft after raft at every bend in the river, what the cartels call a gate, lining up with hundreds of people and rafts to surge. And I've been putting this out on national news all week. I've done 8 hits in literally the last 3 days. So it's where we are, guys, right now. It is an absolute mess, and I'm a firm believer that if we illuminate these problems to the American people, this is how we eliminate it. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today, John, and to be with you, Tom. And you've been doing some great work trying to show what's really been happening down here. So thanks for having me today.
Oh, absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Tom, is there anything at all that we can do as a collaborative to work with some of these senators and congressmen to say, we've got to get something done here? I mean, we cannot allow this. You just heard Jason say the numbers of Border Patrol and ICE and military, they're not enough. So I'm wondering, what kind of numbers do we need down there?
Well, look, everything Jason said about fixing it's correct, but it's never going to happen. The Biden administration isn't going to designate terrorist groups because the Biden administration wants open borders. In their views, these millions of people coming in are going to head to sanctuary cities. Remember, Biden overturned the Trump census rule, which means these millions be counted in the next census, which will result in more seats in the House for the Democrats. This is about perpetual power. This is about them controlling the government. Yeah. What I've been saying, you got, Chip Roy's a solid individual. We got other Republicans. We had 17 Republican senators that voted for the infrastructure bill. Almost all these senators, I saw them on various networks complaining about the border, how it's out of control, how it's a national security issue. The turn around and vote for the infrastructure bill. If they cared about the border and cared about the national security perspective on the border, they should refuse to sit down and negotiate anything with the Democrats.
I agree.
We're not talking to you. We're not sitting at the table with you until this administration shows us at least one thing that they've done to slow the flow. Because as of right now, this administration, in a year of historical immigration, hasn't done one solid thing to slow the flow. They've detailed hundreds of border patrol agents down there to do what? To process, so they can release people quicker. Why? So there doesn't appear to be overcrowding. So nothing to see here. They're so busy managing the optics that they're not managing the crisis. The only thing they've done, they partially reinstated the Remain in Mexico program, which I was a part of the lawsuit. We want to make them do it. Then they appealed it. We had to take it back to court. And now they're slow rolling it. And I'm begging the state of Texas, who I'm working with, take them back to court and hold them in contempt. Because they removed in a couple of months, like around 400. Under the Trump administration, we removed 400 in an hour. So it's ridiculous what they're doing. We need to take Congress back. We need to take the White House back. I'll tell you what, I met with President Trump last week. I gave my word. He comes back, I come back. We'll fix this in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And by the way, Tom, Jason and I will do everything that we can to help you and collaborate with you. You just let us know what you need. That's number one. Number two, our Congress is mob. We know that. These senators, they're too busy cozying up to China. That's what they're doing. And by the way, Tom, real quick, before I let you guys go, do you wonder if any of these illegals are involved with these train robberies that we've been seeing out in Los Angeles that are happening, where they're, just littered in these train yards with packages? I wonder if there's anything to that.
Well, absolutely. Look, I was down the southern border about 6 months ago with 40 sheriffs from all the country. Every one of these sheriffs tell the crime rate has risen, especially among those of non-citizens. Look, it's not a coincidence. If you look at every city that the crime rate has spiked at historic levels, every one of those cities, 100% of those cities are a sanctuary city where illegal aliens get arrested, they get put in jail, they refuse to work with ICE. ICE could remove them not only from the neighborhood, but from the country, and they refuse to do it. It's not a coincidence. The highest crime rate cities right now are all sanctuary cities.
You're right. You're right, Tom. Listen, like I said, Jason and I are here. We're willing to help you and President Trump in any way that we can. Just let us know. Okay, brother?
You got it. Thanks for the fight.
God bless you. God bless you, Jason. And you guys have a great day. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
It's just so disturbing, folks, but it's real, and we've got to deal with it. Going to take a quick break, and once we come back, we're going to have Colonel Tony Shaffer on the show. Be right back. By now, you've all heard me talk about Mike and his great products. Well, guess what? Mike's now introduced his MyPillow My Slippers, which are fantastic. Great on my feet, soft as can be. I love them. Mike's taken over 2 years to develop these slippers. He's designed them to wear indoor or outdoor all day, all night long. Made with MyPillow foam and impact gel to help prevent fatigue. Made with quality leather suede. For a limited time, Mike is offering 40% off his new My Slippers. The My Slippers are so comfortable, you're going to want to get them for the whole family. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code indivisible. You'll also get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, and MyPillow towel sets. Or call 1-800-716-4639 and enter indivisible as your promo code. We're back. Thanks for staying with us, folks. I want to bring on to the show now Colonel Tony Shaffer. Welcome, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Good. For those of you who don't know Colonel Shaffer, he is the president of the London Center for Policy Research. He's also the author of Operation Dark Heart, which is an amazing book, and I highly suggest that you get it and read it as soon as you can. God bless you for coming on today, man.
Thank you, John. You too.
Yeah, I just had Tom Homan and Jaeson Jones on dealing with the border, but we've got so much more to cover today. And, you know, I want to get into Biden's Afghanistan failures. I saw your quote on my friend Nicholas Giardino's show, stop playing Putin's games, which is real. So I want to talk about that. Russia and Ukraine. What the heck is Biden thinking? What's he doing?
Biden's paid off. Always consider. No, I'm serious, John.
I know you are.
The man is corrupt. So basically, you have to follow the money. So at this point, it's very clear the Chinese have bought Joe Biden. The Ukrainians have bought Joe Biden. Heck, I think the Russians have bought Joe Biden. I think Biden has sold himself so much, I don't think he knows who he works for.
I believe that.
And this is where I think we have to establish going forward that the requirement to impeach Joe Biden is completely based on factual, observed corruption. So let's start with that. It's kind of like the guy is corrupt. So then what does he gain? Well, what he gains right now, John, is playing Putin's game, which I argue he is. He's doing everything he can to distract from domestic problems. It's the old, you've probably seen the movie Wag the Dog. That's what this is. He's doing everything he can to try to make sure that the attention is off the domestic aspects of inflation, of employment, of energy, all these things that they are trying to do, which, by the way, aren't accident. This what they're doing domestically is not incompetence, as Steve Homan just said. And it's like they're doing stuff at the southern border just to stop. Exactly. So they're doing that everywhere. The border is one, economy is one, energy, it's all of these components. So, and
this is one of those tentacles that I was talking about. All the ramifications and consequences. This is just one more.
Right. So this, I did an editorial. It was published Monday in the Washington Times, where I basically said, first off, there's no interest, U.S. interest, to put troops into Ukraine. None. There is nothing there. Any deployment of troops into Ukraine would be not only counterproductive, it would potentially suck us into a war that we can't win. We shouldn't even be taken on. Secondly, I'm going to say this, and I'm not pro-Putin. We got to accept the fact the Russians are paranoid. It's like when you're dating a really great hot girl growing up, and her parents are a bit wacky. You got to accept the parents. I mean, you got to go along with that.
Yeah, you're marrying the family as well, right?
So Putin is that crazy uncle that has a bunker and a bunch of guns that you got to accept, and he's always going to be paranoid. This goes back to Tsar Alexander III. I mean, it's who they are. Accept it. So the more we pretend, and I've seen Blinken speak about this. We're trying to basically negotiate. No, you're not. You're trying to essentially project what you want done onto the Russians in a situation that is not. It's not good. They don't recognize Western values, nor do they care. So that's number two. Number three, when we examine what's in it for us, we need to examine NATO. By the way, NATO couldn't fight if it wanted to right now and actually win. There's just absolutely no way. And by the fact that the Germans they basically said, hey, we're out because we will not jeopardize the energy that we get from Russia during the winter. It's just not going to happen. And Biden says, "Oh, we'll fill that gap." No, you won't. You've destroyed our industry. There's no industry there that we can turn to and say, let's do a Marshall Plan for energy for Europe. Not possible. So my bottom line is everything Biden has said is not credible. Everything he has said, it's a distraction. If he was really serious about deterrence, so I'm speaking as someone who's spoken to a number of generals about this, he would have started the deterrent process with big unit deployments last year, probably June, July, when Putin did exercises in Estonia, and he didn't leave. He just left all the equipment there. Well, that's a big hint. Right. It's like, oh yeah, we're just going to go into Estonia and do few exercises. Oh, by the way, we're just going to leave everything.
Yeah, no, so, you're absolutely right.
So I mean, this is not rocket science. This is basic strategy 101. And so that's there. Everything they're doing now means absolutely nothing. 8,500 troops, 3,000. It doesn't matter. And plus, light infantry does absolutely nothing against tanks, especially when you're not even talking about deploying aviation. So, John, what he's doing is not only incredible, it is telegraphing a continued weakness that was demonstrated in Afghanistan. All this is demonstrating weakness to our enemies. And by the way, look, I worked for Lloyd Austin when he was a brigadier general. I think he hit his high watermark as a brigadier general. He should not be SecDef. I know Mark Milley. I was on the transition team. He was my guy during the transition team back in 2016. I'm disappointed that Mark has become the wokest general in the U.S. Army, but neither one of them should still have jobs after Afghanistan. So
no way. And by the way, just a glaring point to make here: we had energy independence with President Trump.
We did. We were a net exporter, right?
Yeah. Biden took that away and instead decided, hey, let's bow to Russia and help them with their pipeline, right?
Right.
So, I have no sympathy for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I want to talk about what's going on with China because, you look at the shiny object over here. Everybody's not paying attention, obviously, to China, which I know you are. Right. I know Gordon Chang is, other people like you guys. But with Taiwan, what's going to happen here after the Olympics? And then also, our senators, Congress, lobbying the Chinese military, and their intelligence or they're so busy with that, bowing to them. And it just, the Wuhan labs, which are still there, like you said, it's all these different distractions, which I call tentacles, like on an octopus, distraction here, distraction there, all these distractions, right, that add up to a big ball of nonsense and mess, lies, corruption, treason. It just makes you sick. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on China as well.
So, look, let's start again with the basics. Dianne Feinstein was completely compromised. She had a Chinese asset driving her for the better part of the last 10 years. Eric Swalwell was sleeping with a known intelligence operative.
Right.
So it's kind of like we have seen through the Democrat Party's own wrongdoing a compromise of our intelligence and oversight system. We know that because the people who were the oversight of it were in bed, literally in one case, literally in bed with China. So, and nobody's investigating that. Nobody's investigating. So,
no.
And I argue, no matter who you are, even if it was Republicans, you got to investigate because you got to find out what the damage was. And if you don't investigate, you don't actually know. So I, at this point, have to presume that everything is compromised.
Oh yeah.
And then so you go to China and you see what's going on regarding the Olympics. Everybody's taken the knee to China regarding the Olympics. We should send Whoopi Goldberg over so she can try to figure out what real racism is regarding the Uyghurs and the fact that they're all Chinese, but they're engaged in genocide by the fact of going after Uyghurs. So it's just fascinating to see the left do everything they can to say, oh, it's China's okay. Right. They use slave labor. They use, Apple and all these big corporations are in bed with these guys. It's a complete mess. And as far as I'm concerned, we are economically rewarding China by its bad behavior. And then you brought up Wuhan. Gordon Chang is one of our senior fellows, Dr. Steve Hatfield, another guys, our virologist. It's no doubt at this point, John, that the COVID-19 came from a man-made leak, a leak of a man-made virus. That's how we got to this. And nobody wants to hold China accountable. And I would argue, because it goes back to the compromise of the intelligence community and the compromise of people like Hunter Biden, who took money from
and Milley.
And well, Mark Milley, I've said on the record that his actions when he was talking to his counterpart during the 2020 election is treason.
Yes.
You just don't do that. You do not call a general and say, "Oh, don't worry, I'm going to let you know if there's going to be an attack." By the way, there was not any attack. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact because I was involved in some of that stuff back then. Everybody was completely focused on the election. Nobody was doing anything with the military. That's what makes Milley's thing so significant. Is like, nobody was worried.
So bizarre, and not only that, the CCP general, Peter Danzig, Fauci, all of that with the gain of function research. They try to bamboozle the American people. Let's sweep this over here and get you distracted on these things here,
right,
so that you don't focus on this anymore. Look, we're not going to forget. I can walk and chew gum at the same time, just like you can. And by the way, Iran, while all this is going on, is continuing to do their thing, right? And that's another story for another day. But and then you have people like Adam Schiff, who continues to lie. He's lying about the January 6th deal. He's been lying about the Russia hoax, FISA abuse, all of that, which I'll get to in a little bit. But one other thing I want to talk to you, and I'm going to have Peter Pry and James Hyde on the show to discuss our power grid, because that's something that people also tend to get distracted from, and it's sitting there, okay. And it's not going away. And people like us, we're always thinking about it. Okay.
Right.
So I want to talk about that with you for a minute, because that's an area that we're vulnerable.
So Ambassador Hank Cooper, who's also one of our board members and associate of Peter, is working with me and our team on examining options regarding this. So as Steve Homan just said, the Biden administration is not going to pay attention to any of this. They're not going to do the Southwest border. They're not going to do EMP because it's not in their interest. They are counting on the chaos to take advantage of. So should we ever become attacked by an enemy using EMP, which I would argue China has a significant capability. North Korea has significant capability. And I've actually, Russia, well, I'm just talking about the Pacific threat for now, but because one of the things I was going to get to is Hawaii. Hawaii depends a great deal on outside resources, everything from gas, food, everything. And so what if we've already, and by the way, Hawaii was actually the only part of the United States I've seen actually suffer from an EMP back in 1962. There was a high altitude explosion that actually happened, and their grid and everything went down. It was one of ours. We actually, that's when we learned about Starfish Prime, I think was the name of the explosion. Starfish Prime goes off in Hawaii. So what if the North Koreans decide, we're not going to start war with America. We're just going to mess it up real good. So we're further distracted with Hawaii. Things like this are very possible, and we're not prepared for it. I actually spent time yesterday. We're trying to work with a number of members of Congress regarding threat. What should they be looking at relating to creating legislation to be able to jump right in at this time next year? Should the Republicans come back in? What should we be prepared to do besides, impeach Joe Biden, which I think is a great idea.
Yes.
But you've got to have a strategy. So one of the things we're trying to do to include the EMP issue is line up with a number of members of Congress. I don't want to get into private conversations, but suffice to say, John, there's a number of members of Congress who are thinking strategically about, boy, this guy Biden's making a lot of mistakes. What can we do immediately when we have the authority to do something?
Absolutely.
And so EMP is one of those key areas. For now, the answer is power down. You've got to work at the state level. Ambassador Cooper is working with South Carolina. I'm getting ready to jump in and work with North Carolina. We've got to find a way to at least get the regional elements, states, the number of states, to work together to be prepared to deal with this. And at this point, I think Peter will probably say this, it's much more important to get down to the distribution level. Bulk power has been fairly well looked at. As a matter of fact, I testified with Peter years ago in front of the FERC, and you got the NERC, and you got all these organizations doing this work. But I think at this point, bulk power is pretty good. You've got to start looking at distribution. What happens when you get it off the big power lines and out to the big cities? That's where nobody's really looking at.
And also the smaller electric companies, in rural areas as well.
That's right. And so, the local town runs our grid, and we've had some power outages, which is, something that we've got to be looking at, is how do you create resilience in that? And by the way, I'm not against green energy. As a matter of fact, I think green energy can offer a great deal should we have a catastrophic event. If you have solar and wind available, should you lose the big power grid, it's a good thing. I just don't believe we should be abandoning fossil fuel
exactly
to get to that, because it's not adequate. It won't do the job. It's good to have as a reserve, and hey, everything else fails, you got it. Because it helps a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm an all of the above guy.
Me too.
I just don't believe in eliminating these other things that work.
No, I don't either. And then nuclear is the best, most efficient, least dangerous, despite Chernobyl. You have less people dying in the process of creating the power than any other power source, even less than hydrodynamic. When you build dams, you have more people die from that. So it's really ironic that you see the green movement abandoning or wanting to not look at areas that I think would benefit greatly. So these are all the things that we are actually trying to work towards, is trying to find this all, like you said, we're for everything. We think that ought to be a resilient plus layered defense against EMP. And it's not expensive. It's just something we have to have the political will to do.
That's right.
And again, that's exactly why Biden won't do anything about it. So
that's right. And Peter and James will tell you that, we can harden those nuclear sites, and we can even go a step further for a little bit more money and make it idiot proof.
Right.
I just saw him, talking with Tucker Carlson. I think it was last week on this very issue, and it's very important. So, look, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Colonel Shaffer, and when we come back, we're going to get into the Russia hoax, and we got a lot to talk about. Be right back.
We've tried so many of Mike's products at MyPillow. Whether it's the Giza Dream Sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, or whether it's the MyPillow towel sets. Me and my family here at Indivisible, we've tried all of Mike's great products, and we just love them. My mom loves her robe. Mark loves the big dog bed for Shakespeare. And my favorite, the moccasins, which are really great for my feet. Save up to 66% off for MyPillow products for you and your family. Go to MyPillow.com and enter the promo code Indivisible for my show, or call 1-800-716-4639 and give them the promo code Indivisible for my show. You're going to love it.
With Colonel Shaffer. Colonel Shaffer, I want to get right into this because this Russia hoax, the FISA abuse stuff, I had a conversation with my friend Carter Page, and it just keeps digging in my head because I've been working and preparing this documentary on this very item, and the Durham investigation continues. So it's almost a blessing that I haven't shot the documentary yet, because of the fact that Durham keeps coming out with more and more and more. So I want to dig into some of this here.
Yeah.
Igor Danchenko was arrested just recently in the Durham investigation. And yet Kevin Kleinsmith, he gets restored to good standing by the District of Columbia Bar Association.
Yeah,
despite
that's unheard
being
of.
a convicted felon,
Right.
and he's still on probation, by the way. Okay. DNC lawyer Mark Elias, he gave grand jury testimony in the Michael Sussman case, that part of it. Also, information gathered from Perkins Coie, the Hillary Clinton campaign, and Elias himself. Sussman lied, okay, to the FBI general counsel, okay, James Baker.
Right.
Sussman's criminal conduct is not just limited to false statements to Baker, to Durham, okay?
Right.
We've got Carter Page's case, 2 cases, one in the Delaware defamation case, which was dismissed. I can't believe it because we have proven FISA abuse confirmed by the FISA court itself. And then the Supreme Court refuses to take on Carter's case at the Supreme Court again with confirmed FISA abuse. And all this happening, with this investigation. It leads me to believe, Colonel Shaffer, that these courts are mob. You've got Michael Horowitz, DOJ Inspector General, Horowitz. He talked this whole deal. He fails to disclose. He conceals crucial information during this investigation with John Durham. So he hides stuff from John Durham, including Carter Page's FISA warrant applications, Clinton email, Crossfire Hurricane. Horowitz's lack of disclosure is raising serious doubts here. His personal interactions with Sussman, who is being prosecuted right now by Durham. The Clinton campaign. This guy, he's got possession of 2 cell phones used by FBI General Counsel James Baker. That's affecting these 3 things: the Carter Page, FISA warrants, the Clinton email scandal, Crossfire Hurricane. I'm just sick of this. I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
So my thoughts are, I figured this out, and I don't know if you've seen this before, John. I figured this out on the 3rd of March of 2017, where I went on Fox and said, I laid out everything we were going to see. I said, we're going to find it's a complete hoax. So a lot of us recognized really early that this was going to be a complete facade. It had nothing to do. So that's the first thing that people need to remember. Mark Levine at the same time figured it out. We kind of were within like a day or 2 of each other. It's like, yeah, this is all fake.
I'm with you guys. I was
with
there
that
too.
said. And by the way, everybody thought we were crazy. Oh no, this is no. And so we were right. We were right. I actually was on the street one day, and Ed Henry comes up to me because Ed was on doing the interview. It's like, I can't believe you were right. We thought you were crazy. It's like, okay, well. Anyway, and Ed and I are still friends, so I'm just saying. But so the point is that you have layers of deception. The people, Horowitz. The IG is compromised. If you got the IG, if you got the guy who's supposed to be doing the oversight compromised,
exactly,
he needs to go to jail because he personally and purposefully held back the information regarding logs and meetings with Sussman and others. He held that back. He hid that, and that's felony. So all these guys, John, as far as I'm concerned, they're all getting off easy. They should be doing hard time in orange jumpsuits and federal lockups. And I'm not talking about those country club places, in Pennsylvania. I'm talking about Supermax in Colorado,
Amen.
Where they need to be paying the price for treason. Because what they did here, and by the way, you may agree with me, I don't know if you will or not, this is further indication we got to get rid of the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act has done nothing to make us safer.
Oh, I
Arguably,
agree.
every legislative tool, military tool we needed to defeat ISIS or Al Qaeda or any other that existed before 9/11. It was just the political will was lacking. The Patriot Act simply gave organizations such as the FBI and others this kind of, hey, you can go look at anything you want without any regard to the Constitution. It's very dangerous, and we've seen here this abuse, this heavy-duty FISA abuse, which then to the other point is the courts don't seem to care. If I were a judge on the FISA court and I found out the FBI lied to me, I would be having that agent in for some sort of a permanent punishment, restricting him from ever coming before me again to lie to me, because they did this. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't
intentional.
Like we kind of, I misfiled this. I got a name wrong. No, this was
nonsense.
Knowing wrongdoing. And so it's something that has to be dealt with directly.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was going to say, so Catherine Herridge continues to cover this over at CBS. I think you're going to see more out of her. I know a number of folks like you and others doing a lot of monitoring of this, but I think it's going to go to Hillary Clinton. I do, because I think she was fully witting. I think she knew everything that was going on. I think Comey's going to get it. I think Strzok's going to get it. That's where I think this is all going to end up.
Yeah, I agree with you. Catherine Herridge has been doing outstanding work on this. Like I said, I just talked to my friend Carter Page about this, and we were getting into this, and he's very distraught, obviously.
I like Carter. I know Carter, and I like him. And he came to me. He caught me at an event in New York outside, and basically had said he just wanted to meet me because I'd been speaking out in support of him before I knew him. It's like, it's the right thing to do. They came after you. Absolutely. And by the way, I don't know if it's possible, but if you have any way at all to put me in contact with Catherine Herridge, I'd like to talk to her about working with us on the documentary on Carter. Catherine, I'll see what I can do. Catherine is very new. She's where it goes. They're in a lot of trouble. So.
Sure. Yeah. No. This would be an independent project that we would involve her with, but it's very powerful. We would have, people like John Solomon and so many others like that involved with the project. Very serious. We've got a distribution deal set up with Salem Media for this. So this is going to be a bigger project.
I'll probably put her in a conflict then, because CBS has to approve anything she does outside of CBS. So
yeah, let me know if it's possible.
Yeah.
I'd love to at least discuss it with her and see if she can be involved, because she has been on the leading front on this since the beginning. I'm not going to let it go, because, like I said, Carter is a friend of mine, friend of yours, friend of Laura's. I mean, look, we know what happened. We just laid it out.
We do. And
we've known it for a long time. So
I've known it. Yeah, like I've noticed since March of 2017. So
yeah. So look, we can't allow them. And like you said, this is just another one of those tentacles, right? This is another one of the distractions, and then all these different distractions, and then don't pay attention to the money we're giving Iran over here. Don't pay attention to the money that we're stealing from the American taxpayer on green energy incentives and weatherization. Don't pay attention. All these different distractions while they do dirt on the American people. So it's nonsense. It's got to come to an end. And I agree with you. It is smart for us to have a plan in place so that when we take Congress and the Senate back, that we can execute something immediately. No delay.
Well, it's necessary. I mean, John, the other side is far better funded than we are. They're bigger than we are, but I would argue they're through that size and funding comes a level of arrogance. And I think the arrogance they're showing right now by complete disdain for the American people, complete disinterest in doing the right thing. I mean, I'm just going to say it. These people are the biggest racists and bigots I've ever seen. They could care less about the inner city. They don't do a thing for minorities. They don't do a thing for women. I mean, look at all this transgender stuff. Now you got men winning all these women's things. Like, they think that's a good thing. It's like, are you kidding me?
It's total nonsense. And
nonsense.
And I've been talking about this for over 2 years now, since this nonsense started with BLM and Antifa and all this critical race theory, all this nonsense. I hit on it all the time on this show. And here's the deal, okay? And I said it on Newsmax. I'll say it on Fox, anywhere. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change. And the American people need to understand this very clearly. And I'll be clear again, okay? It was the Democratic Party that was the party of Jim Crow. They're still the party of Jim Crow. I say this all the time. They were the party of slavery. They're the ones that tried to deny legislation for civil rights. They did it all. And yet here they try to project
Trailatiers,
Republicans.
Japanese American internment, women's suffrage.
Yeah, it blows my mind when Barack Obama and Joe Biden come out and have the nerve to talk about Jim Crow when it was their party. Somehow they've bamboozled their constituents over the last 70 years.
Right.
And I think it's high time, to set the record straight and let the American people know that they lied to them. It's time.
I say it all the time. I mean, if you just need to look at their history. I don't know how. I need to be careful with how I say this. I don't know how people with a good conscience becomes a Democrat based on that party's history. I got to be careful how I say it.
I agree with you, brother. Listen, hang in the green room for a minute. I'll be right there.
Sure.
Thanks for for coming on, Colonel Shaffer.
Sure, John. Anytime. Thank you.
Yeah, that was Colonel Shaffer. What a fantastic show today. And obviously, look, we covered a lot of material. We can never cover everything, but we're going to keep bringing it to you. We're going to bring you the truth. That's never going to change. We've got some huge shows coming up. This is the start of a new year, obviously, and so we have a lot to bring you. I know that we're going to do a special on Georgia candidates down there. More on the power grid, more on this BLM and CRT nonsense, more across the spectrum on crime and the border. That's not going to change. So we've got our eyeballs on all these distractions, and we're going to keep bringing it to you. So it doesn't matter how much they try to project or distract or lie or pull treasonous acts on you, the American people. We're going to keep bringing it to you. Thanks for joining us. God bless you. God bless your families, and God bless America.
Yeah.